That's where I'd put the shop. Right there.
After its successful relaunch in 2005, Doctor Who was back with a new Doctor, a new companion, a new TARDIS. It was a series that found its groove very quickly and connected with modern family audiences. That success meant more seasons with Billie Piper and Christopher he's gone. Need new Doctor.
Hi!
Doctor Who Series 2.
But who is he? Where's the Doctor?
That's him. Right in front of you. That's the Doctor.
What do you mean that's the Doctor?
After 16 years of trying to bring back a show they'd originally suffocated, no, not bitter at all, the BBC did something they hadn't done since the early 1980s. They enthusiastically renewed Doctor Who. The ink on the ratings report from the first episode of writer-producer Russell T Davies' new version of Who had barely dried when the corporation announced it would be back for another year. There was just one little wrinkle in that plan. The ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, had decided to leave while making the first series, and they needed a new Doctor Who. Not to harp on about his departure, I'm not Christopher Eccleston, but over the years various reasons for his departure have been alluded to by the actor. His own personal battles with body image, a realisation of the physical toll playing the Doctor has on the lead actor, and of course a breakdown in the relationship with producers, which may or may not refer to showrunner Russell T Davies.
That's who I am. Now forget me.
So not only did the show get a quick renewal, but would also get a quick regeneration. As we saw in our review of Series 1, the man chosen to replace Eccleston was up-and-coming actor David Tennant.
Or is it a title that's just passed on?
I'm him. I'm literally him. Same man, new face. Well, new everything.
Tennant had appeared on British television and in films for over a decade, and like Eccleston had previously worked for Davies before being cast as the 10th Doctor. While many actors who've played the Doctor had watched the series when they were younger, Scottish actor David Tennant was an actual fan of the show. History does not record whether or not he wore Doctor Who underpants, or if he did, how much they later sold for on eBay. You don't normally get big actors narrating Doctor Who DVD extras when their career is on an upward trend, for example. You usually only do that after you don't get the callback for that 3-episode gig on EastEnders as Derek, the man who sits silently in the corner of the pub, interacting with no one, nursing a beer, but suddenly has a heart attack, and the next episode has everybody sad about their good mate, Del. Tennant's career boost as a result of his casting in Doctor Who may mean he might never need to do a Derek or a third police constable, or if he's really unlucky, man found on the moor naked and unconscious in the middle of winter covered in ants. Tennant's Doctor runs his mouth off at 50 miles an hour, mainly to confuse his enemies with his disarming goofiness.
The magnification's gone right over the top. That's a stupid kind of... Am I being rude again?
Yep.
But it's pretty.
Can show empathy even to a foe.
I'm so sorry.
And is proud of the achievements of the humans, while also ready to castigate them when necessary.
Barcelona.
The 10th Doctor appeared for the first time at the end of Eccleston's final episode, which would lead in, sort of, to the 2005 Christmas special about an invasion at Christmas, entitled appropriately enough, The Christmas Invasion. In his post-regenerative days, the Doctor needs rest, and where better than at Rose's mum's place? If you close your eyes, you could imagine Jackie's flat as a day spa, but the proprietor is loud and pushy. While the Doctor is out of commission, some creepy Father Christmas robots try to kill some people for some reason. And then there's also a killer Christmas tree. And then all of that is forgotten and never mentioned again, which sounds a bit lazy. Scriptwriters call this pulling a Chuck Cunningham, but really it's because no one gives a fuck. The alien vessel appears and gives Earth an ultimatum: surrender or 1/3 of your population will jump off the roof. Unfortunately, it's not like the Golga Friendships where you get to choose which useless third of the population dies. Like crypto bros, influencers, and people who make videos on YouTube. Harriet Jones, now British Prime Minister, has to deal with the alien menace without leaving it for the Doctor to clean up, which is where we get an early mention of Torchwood.
What about Torchwood?
Oh, them. They're a shadowy something in this story and for most of the upcoming season. Torchwood would be mentioned almost randomly in every episode. You'll probably be aware that there's a spin-off series of the same name created by Russell T Davies, which would debut late in 2006. But like the Flash flicking a booger off his finger while in the Speed Force, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Please, Doctor, help us.
The Doctor is out of commission for most of the episode, leaving everyone else to try and deal with the alien threat. Harriet has a go, Rose has a go, But all it takes is a bit of spilled tea to wake the Doctor up and then he's on fire.
Did you miss me?
That's probably because Jackie Tyler put in 3 tea bags and brewed it for an hour. The tea's a bit bitter, like a Doctor Who fan.
How do I look?
Different.
Good different or bad different?
Then we get to see the new Doctor at full tilt. He's our fast-talking Doctor, flinging out non sequiturs, pop culture references, vague insults and bits of deduction faster than a rental car on track day. This Doctor issues a lot of threats and grand proclamations. Like a lot, and these would become a staple of the series to the point where not having a grand proclamation would be disappointing. I went to the bank to talk about an overdrawn account and said in a loud and strident voice to the teller, "My pay usually goes in at 4 p.m, but it's late today for some reason. Are you really going to charge me for being over?" Anyway, things got a little heated and I learned 2 important life lessons. Shouting at people for petty reasons gets you absolutely nowhere, and also defense lawyers are very expensive. Either way, it also doesn't work for the Doctor, since at no point whenever the Doctor talks about Earth being defended does an alien menace ever go, "Shit, dude, you're right," and turn back. Anyway, the Doctor prevails in a sword battle with the leader of the Sycorax, and while merciful in victory,
No second chances. I'm that sort of a man.
before the Doctor wakes up, Christmas Invasion shows us what Earth gets up to when aliens show up but there's no Doctor about. Torchwood is never seen in this episode, but their presence is felt. Despite Harriet Jones' decision being technically correct, it doesn't sit well with the Doctor, who plans a seed that will prematurely end her stint as Prime Minister. Nowadays, Prime Ministerships are measured in the life cycle of leafy greens, so Harriet Jones' tenure as Prime Minister marks her as a 4-salad PM. Of course, the Doctor waving his fleshy sonic screwdriver about would have repercussions in later episodes, but that is a story for another day. Christmas Invasion has very little Tennant in its first half, and then has all the Tennant, overcompensating for the lack of Tennant early on by really making up for it in the second half. But just when is too much Tennant? The answer is never. You can never have too much Tennant. How much more bearable would Christopher Nolan's time-reversing epic Tenet have been if it had just been called, well, anyway. I kinda like this Tennant guy. Viewers like this Tennant bloke as well. You can tell I've said Tennant so much that I've completely blanked on his first name. Starts with a D, I think. Dan Tennant makes a great 10th Doctor, and pretty soon you would see Don Tennant's face on everything, from Dean Tennant toys to Declan Tennant books, Desmond Tennant t-shirts, Diego Tennant posters, and of course the obligatory DVDs of Dylan Tennant's episodes of Doctor Who. Damien Tennant's face would be plastered everywhere for a time, and he would go on to be one of the most popular Doctors of all time, both times. The 10th Doctor's relationship with Rose would be somewhat more flirty than any previous pairing in the series. Like, really flirty. It is no worse than Auntie Beryl when the Mormons come round, but this at least is probably going somewhere other than Utah. And just like that, shipping comes to Doctor Who. Shipping, which is groups of fans wanting a particular couple to pair up, went from being a thing in one thirsty corner of fandom to a major element of the series to more casual viewers of the show. After the 2005 specials, Series 2 would debut in April of 2006. Viewers returned in large numbers, not just out of morbid curiosity, but because RTD had them hooked. Billie Piper and David Tennant made a great team. They're always watchable, even when everything else is somewhat questionable. New Earth sees the Doctor and Rose in the far future in New York, visiting a hospital run by cats that can cure every known disease, apart from, of course, cat allergies. The ailing face of Bo wants to see the Doctor for one last time, and then the skin flap Cassandra is back, using body swap technology to take over Rose's form. The hospital has a dark secret. They are breeding thousands of humans for use as treatments for other patients.
Never trust a nun, never trust a nurse, and never trust a cat.
It is a mostly fun knockabout story with lots of humour, a bit of pathos, and some silliness involving the Doctor covering himself in bags of cordial. It's possible the appearance of the cat nuns led to viewers with pet allergies having psychosomatic symptoms. Despite some excellent makeup effects, the humanoid cats would only return to the series occasionally to avoid the BBC being accused of subliminal advertising for antihistamine medication. Tooth and Claw sees the Doctor and Rose in Scotland, where they meet Queen Victoria. This story is about a group of martial arts fighting monks who something a werewolf, something about taking over the British Empire.
I wanted to say, we are not amused. I bet you £5 I can make her say it.
Tooth and Claw is a show that uses the potential of Doctor Who's formula. It's not just a period piece, but this one shows us a different side of a famous historical figure. Like a few of RTD's stories, the early threat just seems to vanish from the story without much explanation. Not even a, look, I've got to run, I'm getting a new dishwasher delivered.
That's what I thought.
It's a well-directed and mostly well-acted piece. Actual scary horror elements and a great performance from Pauline Collins as the Queen, a Queen who can't abide the Doctor.
I've been boot in a boot.
No, don't do that.
Hoots, mon.
No, really don't.
David Tennant gets to speak in something close to his natural accent for a few scenes, and Rose doesn't really care about the werewolf because she's got mischief in mind.
She's a fair old child. I bought her for sixpence in old London town. It was her of the Elephant Man, so...
Thinks he's funny, but I'm so not amused.
Next up, Doctor Who does something it didn't do all that often. It brought back an old companion for a show. The Doctor and Rose are investigating the goings-on in a London high school.
It's nearly time for lunch.
Rose poses as a dinner lady, while the Doctor shows up as a relief teacher. The kids here seem to be a lot smarter than they should be, and it's something to do with the oil used to cook the chips. Also, Buffy the Vampire Slayer star Anthony Head is an overacting headmaster in a school in desperate need of a drama teacher. Giles turns out to be the leader of the bat-like Krillitane, who are using the kids' expanded brain power for something, or eating them, I forget which. The real meat of the episode, no pun intended, is the return of Sarah Jane Smith, who herself has been investigating the school.
Hello, Sarah Jane.
Initially at least, Rose and Sarah do not get along.
Oh, mate, the missus and the ex. Welcome to every man's worst nightmare.
Elizabeth Sladen slips back into the role she'd revisited several times on television and in audio, but here there's an extra dimension to the character and her performance. This episode features something we've not really seen much on the television series before, a former companion talking about life after the Doctor. For Sarah Jane Smith, there was no going back to a normal life or normal relationships. She'd abruptly left the TARDIS after the Doctor had decided he couldn't take her back to Gallifrey.
Mummies. I've met ghosts.
Robots. Lots of robots.
Slivine in Downing Street.
Daleks.
Met the Emperor.
The Loch Ness Monster.
Seriously.
Also in this episode,
K9!
Sarah Jane Smith had been gifted K9 Mark III in the one-off 1981 pilot for a potential spin-off series, K9 and Company. Here he also returns, still voiced by actor John Leeson. K9 is a third wheel, perennial runner-up in the Doctor's priority list. Unfortunately for Mickey, he realises too late that he shares just a little bit too much in common with K9.
I'm the tin dog.
School Reunion is a good story. Its actual plot is fine enough, especially if you like seeing kids eaten by monsters, but it's a little slight. There's a lot of CG that has dated, but what CG hasn't dated? Unless, of course, it's a CG nun. Girl in the Fireplace sees writer Stephen Moffat return to bring us more of his stock-in-trade, madcap, wild ideas that don't really hold together on closer inspection, and more than a hint of sadness. The Doctor, Rose and Mickey land on a stricken space vessel staffed by clockwork robots and for some reason contains doorways to a young girl's bedroom. Yeesh, there are whole divisions of police who investigate things like this, but I digress. Renette, or Madame de Pompadour, meets the Doctor as a child, and each time the Doctor visits her room, oh god, she's further along in her life until she reaches the age of 37, since that's when the robots can use her brain.
Lonely then and lonelier now. How can you bear it?
Sure, this episode's logic is Moffat logic. You know, it has a sort of verisimilitude that doesn't always make sense, but at the same time, it's pretty damn entertaining. Renette is historically famous as the King of France's mistress, but in this episode, there's a connection she develops with the Doctor. He saves her from being harvested by the robots, but she still dies off screen just before the Doctor returns to her chambers for a visit. He's visibly heartbroken in a way that was new to viewers, but would soon become a common motif. Oh, and Rose and Mickey are there somewhere, but we don't care because the Doctor and Renette. And now for a two-parter. Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel sees the TARDIS accidentally cross into a parallel universe, one where Pete Tyler is still alive and married to Jackie Tyler, and they have a dog called Rose. It's a parallel universe where everyone has headsets. Well, maybe not that parallel. But damn it, there are Zeppelins. Also, the dying mad scientist John Lumick is developing technology he hopes will prolong his life. Cybers Industries' cybernetic technology will turn people into, hang on a sec, Cybermen. This two-parter with Mickey's doppelganger Ricky, an alternate universe Cyberman origin story, and Rose getting to see her parents interact should have been a great epic story. Parts of it are really good. Director Graham Harper had shown himself to be one of the classic series' best directors in the 80s, and he returns to the new series to use the show's resources very well. It looks epic, it's really well directed, but there's just something about the story that doesn't quite work as well as it could have. The new look Cybermen are cool and all, but their clanging footsteps get annoying quickly, and these hefty looking Cybermen could probably be defeated by leading an army of them over a rotting wooden bridge. These Cybermen could be useful in some industries, however: landscaping, building roads, and tenderizing veal. The Cybermen's vocabulary seems limited to offering involuntary upgrades or wanting to delete anything they can't use, which sounds awfully like a Windows update restarting your machine just when you're about to save your work.
You will be deleted.
The new Cybermen voice is sort of effective, but it's not one that makes long scenes of cyber exposition particularly appealing, certainly not like the Daleks. Nick Briggs, of course, provided the voice for both creatures. There's a strong horrific element with people being turned into Cybermen in mechanized abattoirs or being incinerated. I mean, really, there's no upside to being turned into a Cyberman, and it is a one-way deal. There are no refunds. There's not even an option with a bullshit restocking fee. This is hammered home by the Doctor briefly deactivating the emotional block on a downed Cyberman.
I'm so cold.
In the end, it's a decent two-part story with lots of action, but doesn't really do the Cybermen too many favours going forward. Alternate universe Jackie Tyler, having been turned into a Cyberman, has a few things to say.
Once I had a love, and it was a gas. Soon turned out, had a heart of glass. In between, what I find is pleasing, and I'm feeling fine. Love is so confusing.
Because it hurts.
Idiot's Lantern is a story where the idea is sort of sound and the setting is fun, but the episode has still managed to end up at either the top or bottom of a number of lists. It's at the bottom of any list ranking Doctor Who episodes from best to worst, and near the top of any list ranking the worst ones.
Hold on a minute. There are three important, brilliant, and complicated reasons why you should listen to me. One!
The Doctor wants to take Rose to see Elvis in New York, and instead ends up in London just before the Queen's coronation. People are being sold ultra-cheap televisions that literally steal people's faces. A creature called The Wire lives in the TV image and needs to feed off viewers, which is quite a meta-critique of how broadcast television ratings work. So there's good and there's bad. The good starts with the Doctor and Rose larking about in the 50s on a moped. Actually, that's about it. The rest of it's mostly rubbish.
I just invented the home video 30 years early. Betamax.
Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit is a two-parter trading on Doctor Who's oldest trope, the isolated group of humans fighting an overwhelming alien threat. A human base is parked just off a massive black hole. They're hoping to discover a new power source. With them are a race of what amounts to slave creatures, the humans' slightly telepathic servants, the Ood. And then there's an ancient something bubbling away in a pit underground, waiting for someone to come down and free it. Of course, the creature is able to use first one of the humans as its proxy, and also the Ood as its army. Here's a story that does not rush the plot and instead keeps up a near-perfect pace, a balance of action and drama. The Doctor and Rose interact with the human crew on more than just a purely plot level.
That is so human.
And most of them feel like actual characters, rather than the usual character archetypes to tick off a bingo card as they're bumped off one by one. Basically, this is the Doctor Who equivalent of striking up a conversation with your Uber driver. Except in this case, the Doctor is not asked to come and see the driver's band play their first gig.
I'm so close. Don't turn around.
The voice of the Beast, Gabriel Wolfe, had previously provided the voice of Sutekh in Pyramids of Mars. In this series, a few actors who'd appeared in the original series returned, playing a different character for the new show.
Do you actually get paid though? Do they give you money?
The Beast and his armies shall rise from the pit to make war against God.
And Ood voice Silas Carson had infamously played Newt Gunray in the Star Wars prequels. The Ood would be one of the more original creations of the new series and would show up several times throughout the Tennant era. Love and Monsters is a controversial episode in so many ways. It's polarizing in a way that ensures that just casually mentioning it to a fan will produce a powerful physical response.
To hunt down that face in a seething metropolis of lost souls, to find that one girl in 10 million.
Oh, that's Rose Tyler.
Elton Pope is recounting his adventures, where he's adjacent to the Doctor, surviving an Auton attack, watching a spaceship crash into Big Ben, and having his windows broken by an alien spaceship. He meets up with some like-minded like-minded souls interested in finding out more about the Doctor, but instead finds a group of friends who just enjoy each other's company.
London Investigation and Detective Agency. Linda, for sure.
Until, of course, this shadowy fella turns up and uses Linda, as they're known, to hunt down the Doctor more effectively. The Doctor and Rose feature in this episode for a few minutes at best, with guest star Mark Warren carrying the episode. The ending where Elton's girlfriend is saved but trapped in a paving stone, I mean, don't ask.
We've even got a bit of a love life.
Oh, let's not go into that.
Is where it lost a lot of people who hadn't already switched off. Mark Warren is these days a fairly big actor, and like almost every big actor now, was in Band of Brothers. He was the cowardly Private Blythe. He even appeared in the background of a Sylvester McCoy story. Comedian Peter Kay as the episode's villain Absorbaloff starts off okay before playing his role strictly for laughs, and perhaps contributed greatly to the volume of dislike this episode has attracted over the years. His alien form was based on the winner of a viewer competition to design a Doctor Who monster. Moaning Myrtle actor Shirley Henderson has to play a paving stone who, well look, something has to cement their relationship. I'm generally not a fan of the ending of this episode, but the show as televised does at least end on a happier note than the original edit. Doctor Who's success and new demand for Christmas specials left the production team with scheduling issues that were solved by the idea of a Doctor Light episode. In effect, 2 episodes would be filmed at the same time, but the Doctor would only really appear in one of them for a few scenes. So yes, it is Doctor Who, but only just. This idea of double banking episodes would be used several times over following seasons, sometimes to startlingly good effect. Love and Monsters also has fun with the idea of obsessed fans and how groups of fans can come together and form lasting relationships, which are then ruined because while bloody Arthur can't carry a tune, he insists on hogging the microphone on karaoke night. B-flat is a key to a song, not a suggestion on how to sing every goddamn song, Arthur. Fear Her is a candidate for one of the single worst episodes of Doctor Who. Look, any long-running series is going to have an embarrassment of riches as far as unloved episodes, but if any episode this season has a shot at the title, oh, it's this one. A troubled girl draws people and they end up trapped in her drawings. And there's also something about the 2012 London Olympics. There have been many instances in Doctor Who of a show that was written as a last-minute replacement or a show that's written as a budget-balancing cheapie, or sometimes both, and occasionally these shows can turn out to be something special or wonderful. That's the romantic part of fandom, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. And then there are episodes like this, which is a slow-motion car crashing into a derailing train while a plane crashes into both before being stomped on by Godzilla. There's only so much you can do with the premise. Around this time, writer Matthew Graham would give us the imaginative time travel but not really time travel series Life on Mars, and so his first contribution to Doctor Who turning out so turgidly is a bit of a shame.
How long are you going to stay with me?
Forever.
The final 2-part story, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, tries to bring everything together and tie it all up like an evening class entitled An Introduction to Bondage. And I mean, tie everything up.
The Torchwood estate.
All through the season and even in the previous season there were references to Torchwood.
I would call it Torchwood.
Now finally we get to see what Torchwood is. Torchwood, apart from just being an anagram of Doctor Who that rolls off the tongue like vomiting a Ferrari, is a unit-like organisation run on corporate lines rather than military ones.
The Torchwood Institute has a motto. If it's alien, it's ours.
Non-corporeal beings are showing up all over Earth, leading them to be dubbed as ghosts. But what's really happening is Torchwood is opening up the rift between the parallel universe that's being used by the alternate universe Cybermen to infiltrate our universe. So now the Cybers Industries Cybermen will now become the Cybermen in our universe. Deep within Torchwood, there's also this mysterious object that nobody can open. That is until this lot show up.
Just last week, she stared into the heart of the time vortex and aged 57 years. But she'll do.
I'm 40.
Deluded. Bless.
And, well, look what the cat dragged in. We have the folks from the parallel universe popping back and forth, despite the Doctor saying time and time again just how utterly impossible it is to willingly flit back and forth, while everyone else not a Time Lord seems to do so with little problem. For decades, fans have imagined a battle between the Daleks and the Cybermen, and finally we have it. I just never imagined it would be so, catty.
You have declared war upon the Cybermen.
This is not war, this is pest control!
It's also one-sided, like a dice made out of a flat unfolded piece of paper. Yes, I know you could turn the paper over, but in this specific case, the other side of the paper is coated in a lethal dose of anthrax.
You are superior in only one respect.
What is that?
You are better at dying.
So yes, in battle with the Daleks, the Cybermen offer up about as much resistance as a cold silver wire. It's not really a fair fight. Like the main event where super heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson faced off against the 4-year-old boxing prodigy Bobby Dean Juniper, the preschool pugilist from Pittsburgh. It's odd I haven't heard from him in a long time. There's a lot to love. It's not quite as good as last season's finale. The Battle of Canary Wharf is epic, and the Daleks taking on the Cybermen does technically scratch the itch the fans had had for a long time, but it turns out that was just their canvas undershirt. When Mickey and backup Pete Tyler jump into our universe, which is of course impossible, Rose and Jackie go back to the alternate universe so the Tylers can be a family again. There's a lot of sound and fury, and then the Doctor just sucks out the Daleks and Cybermen into a void between universes. The episode's real climax is the Doctor's final message to Rose. The interdimensional video chat brings together the season's real arc of the Doctor and Rose growing ever closer before being separated seemingly forever. Rose can't have the Doctor, and the Doctor won't say the thing people were waiting for. Yet.
Rose Tyler.
Of course, forever is both a long time and completely arbitrary and open to interpretation in Doctor Who. This isn't the last we'll see of Rose Tyler. Army of Ghosts also has Freema Agyeman appearing in a small role. She would of course return as a different character next season as the new companion, Dr. Martha Jones. In re-watching this season, I mostly enjoyed the episodes and went with the flow. Even Love and Monsters was entertaining enough for the most part, assuming you've made peace with how it ends. Even the mostly awful Idiot's Lantern wasn't complete trash. I mean, significant trash, but not complete. Fear Her, however, is like pineapple on pizza, truly terrible. I mean, pineapple on pizza is a choice. You can choose to eat the pineapple on the pizza, or you can choose to pick off the pineapple bits and fling them out of the window of the bus. Look, I'm a pineapple flinger, and as such, I am banned from overland public transport for life. Also, it's just not the same on the tube. There's a much more confident, less tentative feel to this season. The scale of the production has increased markedly, fueled by the show's newly rediscovered popularity, and scripts that aren't trying to curb their ambitions in order to fit a meager budget.
Identify him!
Alright then. If you really want to know, that's the Doctor.
Is it a series or a season? American television has always used the term seasons, and in Britain it was more common to use the term series. For example, you had a series, let's say Monty Python's Flying Circus, but any series would do. In this case, you had a series of 13 episodes which made up the first series of the series Monty Python's Flying Circus. See, it's not remotely confusing. Classic Doctor Who was usually classified as a season.
Well, makes life simpler for us.
Look at the DVD box sets of any British television series as opposed to an American show, and you'll see series used on most British shows, apart from Doctor Who. The Christopher Eccleston episodes weren't just considered season 27, but series 1. Why? For the sake of convenience, a fresh start, some tentativeness about whether this was the same show. It may have been talked about by producers as a continuation, but on screen it was all a bit wishy-washy in terms of actual confirmation that this was the same basic continuity, rather than a new, separate Who universe. Series 2 brought us Sarah Jane Smith and K9, and with them specific references to the original series, which for me is final on-screen confirmation. For a while it was a bit like starting at a new high school, but your best friend from grade 6 pretends like they don't know you for a few weeks. Sarah Jane and K9 finally quashed any hint that it was a different version, which would have been like how there are different versions of Sherlock Holmes, until some idiot of course gives us a Sherlock Holmes multiverse where Benedict Cumberbatch, Robert Downey Jr. and Jeremy Brett all team up. Actually, that sounds quite brilliant.
Bet you're not amused now.
So there is a Doctor Who Season 2 and a Series 2, separated by 40 years. And they are all apparently in the same giant continuity, aside from all the various contradictions. Look, have EastEnders and Coronation Street ever contradicted their own established history? Answers on a postcard to I don't care.
More to do than... No, hold on. Sorry, that's the Lion King.
Classic Doctor Who rarely referenced any sort of pop culture. Characters would occasionally quote classic mythology, poems, literature or Shakespeare.
It's like Stephen Hawking's Mr. Speaking Clock.
New Doctor Who would speak to an audience that had grown up with TV and movies.
Who are you gonna call?
Ghostbusters!
Fine for you little ghosts.
The increase in scale this season meant even more special effects, more outlandish costumes and set design. The CG effects hold up okay most of the time. Adequate, sometimes a little dated, but mostly just fine. Murray Gold's music took a step up this series, with the addition of some music being played by an orchestra, starting with the Christmas Invasion. Hearing the theme tune's middle eight played by the BBC National Orchestra of Wales often puts a tingle down my spine, though that might just mean I found where my missing pet scorpion has gotten to. I'd get up, but I can't move just at the moment. Series 2 of the newly reformed Doctor Who brought us a new Doctor, who right out of the gate made everybody forget about Dominic, Daniel, Don, Diego, all of the Tennants, which we've just remembered as David, made a brilliant impression on audiences. While the casting of an actor like Christopher Eccleston gave casual viewers permission to watch this renewed version of the show, it was David Tennant who converted a large number of viewers into fans. The sign of a good Doctor is that you'll rewatch an episode like Fear Her simply because of Tennant and his companion. Billie Piper gave us a companion that rewrote the rules of the companion role. She was no longer just a plot cipher and somebody for the audience to identify with, but now a fully rounded character with their own hopes and dreams and all that shit. Season 2 had some ups and some downs, some near classics, some solid stories, and one or two clunkers.
Could be worse.
So overall, it's quite solid and entertaining, with consistently good writing and direction for the most part. Season 2's success would also provide a springboard for not just one but 3 spin-off series. Torchwood, an adult-focused series which saw Captain Jack lead a small team in a reconstituted but less shadowy version of Torchwood. There was the more kid-friendly Sarah Jane Smith Adventures, which saw Elizabeth Sladen deal with threats with help from some kids. Please don't mix those DVDs up. And a non-BBC K9 spin-off series.
Get a house or something, a proper house with doors and things, carpets. Me, living in a house.
Series 3 would give us another new companion and bring back one of the Doctor's oldest foes.
What? What?
Who are you?
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.
Achoo!